Stephen A. Leahy, bankruptcy. Let's talk about bankruptcy. Can bankruptcy and IRS problems, challenges be resolved with a bankruptcy? Yes or no?
Well, before I answer that question, let me tell you something about foreclosures, because there, as you're mentioning, that there's a lot of bad people out there. But I help people in foreclosure, and I don't do it for free. But so they have a leg up on me. But,
Right.
But sometimes you have to have an attorney go to court for you. They can't do that for you. And so if you're in foreclosure, or you're thinking of, or it's happening to you, then you should call me too. That won't cost you anything if you call me just for my advice. And you can call me at 312-664-6649. My opinion is people wait too long before they talk to an attorney. Talk to an attorney. It doesn't cost anything. Okay. So now let me answer the question. One of the things, there's 6 things you can do if you owe the IRS money. So one of those things is you can file for protection under the bankruptcy laws. Now, not all taxes are dischargeable. Means that you can't get out of some taxes. So, for instance, if you owe for this last year, for instance, well, that wouldn't be dischargeable because it has to be due more than 3 years ago, and in order to be dischargeable. So there's 2 types of bankruptcy, right? There's if you think of the bankruptcy code as a book, and like every other book, it's divided into chapters. So you have a chapter 7, and that's what most people have heard about when they hear about bankruptcy. And then, but you also have chapter 13. And so Chapter 13 can be used. The only thing that's more powerful than the IRS in our society is the federal court system. And bankruptcy is a federal law. And so sometimes you get somebody in the IRS that just does whatever they want, as we were talking about earlier. So government agencies have this tendency to roll over people. And so sometimes you get an IRS agent who's just rolling over you. And the only way to stop them is to get a court involved. And so sometimes you can use Chapter 13 in order to stop an IRS levy, for instance. So people, if you're working and the IRS starts coming after your wages and you have to pay your rent the next month and the IRS won't give you any money because it won't let your employer pay you. If you're a 1099 employee, for instance, they can take all your money. So if I'm a realtor and I owe the IRS money and I have some commissions coming, they can take all of my commissions and I get nothing. And so one way to stop that is to get protection from the courts, and that would be Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So the answer is yes, you can use bankruptcy in order to help you with an IRS problem. Whether you can get out of it or not, that's the real question. Again, if I owe the IRS older taxes, there's 3 important dates that you should keep in mind. As long as those taxes are more than 3 years old, if they were due more than 3 years ago, here we are in 2018. 3 years ago would have been 2015. 2014 taxes were due in 2015. So anything before 2014 and before, they fit into that description. Okay. The second one is you have to have filed those tax returns more than 2 years ago. So a lot of people that I see haven't filed for some time. So if you haven't filed for 5 years and then you go to file your tax returns, all those taxes won't be dischargeable in bankruptcy. And they must be assessed more than 240 days ago. So sometimes it takes the IRS some time to assess these taxes. So anyway, people are sometimes surprised that you can use bankruptcy to get out of these taxes. And sometimes it's the fastest, easiest way out because bankruptcy is kind of it's kind of a template on how to get out of debt. When you're dealing with the IRS, that costs a lot of money because the IRS makes it cost a lot of money. It's hard to talk to them. They don't want to give you any information. It's a bureaucracy, and it costs a lot of money to go through that bureaucracy. But when you file bankruptcy, it's a template. It's one size fits all. It's a lot cheaper, and sometimes you can walk away. So I've had people who are being levied. The IRS is not working with them. It's taking all their money. They're levying them, and we try to deal with them, and the IRS revenue officer won't budge. And so then we turn around and we file for protection under bankruptcy laws. It's one of those things it's one of the tools that you have to fight the IRS. And again, sometimes it's the best tool. Sometimes it's only a temporary tool to stop a levy, for instance, because Chapter 13 can be a temporary solution. But anyway, so there are ways out. Which way? I always tell people, if you're thinking about filing bankruptcy and you owe the IRS money, don't go to just any bankruptcy attorney because they don't understand taxes, and because it's a very complicated area of the law, taxes in bankruptcy. So if you owe the IRS money and you're thinking, and you have a lot of credit card debt, for instance, or you're behind in your mortgage, then you have to call an attorney who understands both of these things because it's so critical. I can't tell you how many people I've helped who went to filed bankruptcy only to find that the taxes that they were filing the bankruptcy for were not discharged. And so after they come out of bankruptcy, the IRS is still coming after them. And they're like, I thought that was gone, because their attorney told them, well, let's just file and find out what happens. Not the way you want to go about this.
Do you do anything with student loans?
I don't understand what you mean by do anything. The student loans are harder even than taxes to get rid of.
Right.
In bankruptcy, you have to show that you'll never be able to pay them.
But and the reason I asked, we have a 630 Dan out there with the 630 texter. Do you know a student loan attorney? And there are other companies out there.
There are, yeah,
that are advertising a lot to hire us, and we'll get a discharge in a bankruptcy. And I was always under the assumption, and a lot of people I know, that you cannot discharge a student loan in a bankruptcy. And how are these attorneys spending a lot of money
Most
on
of
the
those
radio?
aren't attorneys, and they're not talking about bankruptcy.
Well, It says law firm. No, it says law firm.
Okay, so maybe those are. I'm not familiar.
But is
with
there a
those.
distinction between private student loans and
yes.
federal student loans too?
The
And
answer-
maybe that's the.
The answer is no. And here's why. Because the government backs private student loans. So anything the government backs is not going to be discharged in bankruptcy.
Okay.
Used to be a distinction some years ago, but now that distinction's gone. And you, in order to discharge and I have discharged some student loans, but the bar is very high to prove that you're never going to be able to pay them. I mean, it's very high. It can be done, but you have to be disabled. You're never going to go back to work. And then you can get them discharged. But actually, if you have student loans and you're disabled, you don't have to file bankruptcy. You can get them. You can get the student loan discharged anyway without bankruptcy. So there's ways to do that. You don't have to file bankruptcy just because if that's your only issue and you're disabled, there's other ways to get around those loans. So, but generally, again, everybody's different. But I got to say that the student loan bar is very high, much higher than taxes, and that's kind of unusual.
Quick question. Now you're talking about IRS. Do people have the same types of problems, and do you provide the same type of solutions for state taxes that people?
Very good question. The answer is the Illinois Department of Revenue is harder to deal with than the IRS.
Geez. Surprise.
Okay. So the IRS has statutes and rules and a whole thick book that you can look at of how the manual works. The Illinois Department of Revenue does not. It's very hard. But I do help people, but it's really hard.
Phone number. Got to hit a break.
312-664-6649.
All right, 312-591-8900. Jenny, hang tight. Gary Novell, hang tight. We're going to take a quick break. 312-591-8900. You can go to our website, WLSDavid.com. That's WLSDavid.com. Has all the contact information of all of our sponsors. Coming out of the break, Gary Novell. Top of the hour, we have Roy Spencer. Then we go over to Donna Sattler at 11:15. And then answering all of MegaPro's Joe's text questions at 11:30. We'll take a quick break. 312-591-8900. WLSDavid.com.